Welcome, everybody. We're going to talk about connecting your customers using Salesforce Identity for IoT. I'm glad everybody showed up. This is actually hopefully going to be an exciting one. I'm really excited to talk about this. This is a interesting new capability we're adding to the Salesforce platform that's going to help you take the information that's in Salesforce and the information you're tracking about your customers, accounts, contacts, assets, et cetera, and using your devices get more connected to your customers. So let's do the favorite part of the show. This is actually really important because I'm talking about a bunch of forward-looking stuff. Okay, so the capabilities I'm talking about today are actually in pilot, which means that in order to get your hands on it, you should probably come up to me after the show and grab a business card, and we'll hear about your use cases and get you hooked up in the pilot. And some of the stuff that I'm showing even is stuff you can't get your hands on yet, so you're kind of in a bleeding edge session here. You should definitely pay attention to the forward-looking statement. I'm usually talking about stuff that's already shipped. In this case, I'm talking about the future, so don't buy anything based upon what I'm saying. That's usually good practice anyways. To introduce myself, my name's Chuck Mortimer. I run Identity and Security Product Management here at Salesforce. And one of the things that we've been doing in Identity is actually baking it into the core of your CRM platform. Okay? And the basic reason for this, the fundamental reason we have a team working on identity, which sounds kind of weird when you hear Salesforce working on identity, what's that mean? Is because the nature of how you interact with your customers, the very nature of CRM is actually changing. Digital transformation is moving us into this world where all of your customer interactions and your brand interactions are actually happening over digital channels. So what were historically human-managed processes are now things that are happening through machines. For example, you used to have account reps go out and talk to people in meetings, and they'd talk to somebody and then enter information into a CRM database. Or customers would call into your call centers, and we'd screen pop something, and they'd talk to a human, and that human would enter stuff into a CRM database. Or at point of sale system, you might have somebody in a retail channel, and in that point of sale system, they would enter stuff into a database, right? And all of that is changing. So for example, tonight I have to lovingly fly to the East Coast to go to a wedding on a red eye. I'm really excited about that after a week at Dreamforce, but all of my brand interactions with the airline are gonna be digital tonight. So the way that I checked in was on my phone. My boarding pass is on my phone. The fact that they recognized who I was is allowing them to deliver the right level of service. So as you move into this world, I even got my clicker I forgot about. As you move into this world where our customers are connected to your organization through these digital channels, it's imperative that you have the ability to recognize them and deliver not only the right level of access, but the right service to those customers, right? So as I fly that airline tonight, they better recognize me as a frequent flyer member and one, hey. What's that? Keep going, I'll come here. My clicker's hooked up. Yeah, cool. Thanks, though. I just forgot about it, so. Let's make sure of that, actually. Yay, clicker's working. Okay, cool. And that's the next slide. I have no idea where I was. What was I talking about? I was going to get on an airline, and all my interactions are going to be through that. So we're moving into this world where in order to deliver the right level of service, you have to recognize your customer, right? So we've built identity into the Salesforce platform such that as a customer approaches you on the web, you can have one way to register users, allow them to log in with existing credentials through social sign-on, have them update and manage their profile in their system, provide single sign-on to your web applications. You can use Salesforce to have a single identity for your web properties. And as you're doing that, build a 360-degree view of your customer instead of taking that information, putting it into an IT system. You can do that with your mobile apps. You can point your mobile apps at our platform. We can run identity for them. You can focus on delivering great mobile apps to your customers. We can issue tokens that you can use against APIs, our APIs or third-party APIs, your own API gateways if you want to start exposing data and information assets you have buried back in the enterprise or things running on other clouds. And finally, if you extrapolate that all the way out to connected products, right? These are going to be your brand interactions in the future, the way that your customers are plugged directly into your company. So if we look at that and we start and take a step back and say, okay, how are connected products going to change this? And why is identity important when it comes to connected products? Let's take kind of a prototype or what I consider to be the hello world of a connected product. Everyone's familiar with a connected thermostat. Okay? So here we have our digital thermostat, and it's 72 degrees, and that's great, and I can actually have a big fleet of connected thermostats, if you will, and pesky clicker. You can do lots with this. Okay? As information is flowing into your systems, you might be gathering telemetry data off these and refining engineering processes and seeing how many of these sold and optimizing your supply chain and things like that. But if a particular thermostat spikes, let's say it's one in a consumer's home or one in this particular room, the only way that you're actually going to take and find or do proactive service or proactive sales or proactive marketing on behalf of that is if you understand and find the customer behind the device. So what we've really tried to enable here with our Identity for IoT offering is for you to recognize that behind everything, behind every connected device, whether that's a thermostat or an app or your car or your light bulb or the toothbrush Mark likes to talk about, behind each one of those is a customer. And when you do that, it creates this opportunity where you can create connected experiences. You can build systems, your systems of engagement to connect directly to your customers. So let me give you some practical examples. If you were building a, let's say, a rack that you're going to sell of hardware you're going to sell to a customer, you can monitor that remotely, and if there's a surge in that, that is an opportunity not only for you to create a case, let's send a dispatch field service and help that customer solve that problem. It's also an opportunity for you to create a lead in order to close the loop. You might be able to go back and sell that customer a surge protector. The only way you're going to do that, the only way you're going to get somebody dispatched here when the thermostat goes wrong, if you're able to find that account or that contact or that asset that you're tracking in your CRM database behind that device. So it's a way to take these connected devices and move them from anonymous or something that is just tracking the identifier of the device to having the full context of here's the customer this is acting on behalf of. And we think this is really powerful. So with that, we are introducing this pilot I was talking about called asset tokens. Okay? And there's a few key properties here. The first is these are tokens we can issue to your devices that have special properties. We're going to go into some of these properties. But these are designed to allow it to secure communications with your backend. We've used open standards here so that you can talk not only to a Salesforce backend. We'll talk a bit about IoT Cloud. We'll talk a bit about how you might do this with Heroku. You could also talk to an app running on Azure or an app running on AWS or an app running in your own cloud or your own data centers. Because it's an open standard, you can do this and you're not wed kind of to the Salesforce ecosystem. You can actually just follow this pattern in your own infrastructure if you don't want to use our system, but you like the ideas that we're putting forth today. So this also carries with it enough context to find your customer. So these tokens that I'm describing, and I'm going to kind of dive into what these look like from a technical perspective, carry what we call claims with them. Okay? These are attributes of potentially the device or the contact that are behind the customer. We'll take a look at these, but think of it this way. As data is coming in to your backend services, let's say it's that telemetry data coming out of that thermostat, and as that temperature spikes, if there's enough context in that token, not only can you identify the device, but you can identify the customer that's impacted by that. So you can go create a case in Salesforce. You can go create a lead in Salesforce, et cetera. And then finally, we have hooked it into the power of the App Cloud such that you can then kick off other business processes. So there's a registration flow I'll walk you through here. And as you do that, as you register a device on our side, we can tie into and locate existing assets that might be deployed in Salesforce for you. Or we can kick off Process Builder or Flow or fire triggers to allow you to customize what's going on. That might be reach out to a back office warranty system and activate the warranty system as that device comes online. So we've tried to be both standards-based and adaptable so you can integrate a bunch of interesting use cases. So I thought I would start first with how it works. Okay? And we're going to go through two primary things here. What we've introduced is a registration protocol, a way for you to register devices, and then this token format, a way for you to talk to your back end. Okay? So the first thing is who are our major actors? Okay. We have 4 logical actors in here. They are the customer and device registry. Okay. This is, in our case, Salesforce. Okay. We have the back-end services. This could be anything. We're going to talk about it in terms of IoT Cloud today, but this is where you're going to be sending your data. And then down here, you have an app that the user is going to interact with and a connected device. Okay? There could be additional actors here. You might have a manufacturer that's chained into it. Our model allows for that. These could expand and collapse. These could be the same thing, for example. These could be the same thing. A sophisticated device might contain its app. A less sophisticated device might have its app running in a web browser or on a phone and have something that's paired with it. So all of these things can expand and contract a little bit, but these are kind of our actors. Okay? So the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to establish who the customer is, okay? And this is going to let us log in. So you're going to use your app to log in. Now this may feel like a login, like maybe you're logging into a Salesforce community. This may be done by a manufacturing agent as something's coming off the line. It could simply log into Salesforce and identify who it wants to register or associate this person with. But we're going to establish some context. Who is this? This can use all of our identity capabilities, all of our community capabilities. We'll show you how this actually works. Once I've logged in, I gather information about this device. Okay? Things like its identifier, potentially its public key, its serial number, what you want to call it. And since we've done this on top of App Cloud, you can actually extend this. So if you have additional attributes you'd like to gather about those devices, you can package those up and send them to us and collect data that we weren't predicting when we built this. But you send this up to us through a registration protocol. This is something based upon OAuth that we've been working on standardizing with Microsoft and Ping Identity and a few other people in the industry. As we do that, before the registration is done, we'll also kick off a few key things. The first is we're going to link it back to assets and accounts and contacts. Okay? So for example, if we were to gather the serial number of this device, and as we register it, we will automatically go look in the asset object within Salesforce and try and find an existing asset that matches that serial number. You've pre-registered your assets. If you haven't, we can also create that asset for you on the fly. At the same time, we can also link that to your accounts and contacts. So all of this gets merged right into your CRM data model. What it feels like to the end user, though, isn't like this weird OAuth token exchange thing. It'd feel like they're going to your community and registering a new product, filling out a warranty card, something like that. You're gathering information about this and sending it up to Salesforce. And that's where we can also kick off business process. Because these are full-fledged objects on the Salesforce platform, we can then kick off flow, kick off process builder. So this registration might gather, find it, link to the asset database, link to the account and contact, and kick off a process that could reach out to IoT Cloud and inform it that a new device had come online, or reach out to your warranty system to activate the warranty for that particular device, or kick off some custom business process, or talk to your backend to begin billing for that device. Okay? So lots of interesting things you can do when you combine registration with the ability to kick off custom business process powered by the App Cloud. Then we issue this token. Now that sounded like a lot, but that was actually kind of like that. Humans really wouldn't be able to perceive the amount of time it took us to do that on the server. So basically instantly we issue this token back. And now this app can hand the token back to the device and it can go away. Okay? We no longer need Salesforce in the equation now, at least for the device interactions that are going to happen. We no longer need the app either. In other words, your user isn't going to be present. No one wants to authenticate their thermostat and then come back like 2 hours later when it's session timed out and authenticate your thermostat again. These are long-term grants that we're issuing down to this thermostat. And as a result, this can hold on to this token for years if you want it to. You get to control the rules about how that happens, but it can hold on to that token and then just start sending data, and your user can go do what they wanted to. They have somebody that's going to act on their behalf, this little agent down here, this little connected device. So it can now start sending data, and it can send away, and it's not going to impact your Salesforce database because we've built this in a way that the IoT backend can validate the signature on this token without impacting Salesforce. So now IoT Cloud can go ingest billions of events, and it won't impact your CRM deployment at all. You've registered it, you've linked it, it's carrying context, but now it can ingest it at super high rates for the back end. But when you find that needle in the haystack and you want something to happen, such as a temperature spike, for example, it has enough context to know who to go act upon on behalf of that user within Salesforce. So if you need to create that case, go fix that thermostat. You need to go dispatch field service. You need to go create that lead or opportunity. You have the context because it came with the token, allowing you to know what to do within Salesforce. Make sense? Or is it just gibberish? It's about to get more gibberishy. So this is a developer session, right? Okay, here we go. So why did we do something different here for identity? Okay? If you look at existing identity systems and how they've been designed for, say, the past 20 years or so, there's a bunch of properties that weren't quite right for identity for IoT. Historically, a lot of systems have used proprietary token formats. Okay? So if you're not familiar with what a token is, It's something you're going to use to identify the user. It might be a cookie in the web world. It could be an API token or an access token when you're talking to APIs. In our case, the token is going to be a proprietary format when you actually talk to Salesforce. Our sessions, our access tokens, are opaque to the rest of the world. They just look like a bunch of random numbers, okay? And it allows Salesforce to tell who this is, but if you want to go talk to another platform can't interpret Salesforce's access tokens. They can't interpret proprietary access tokens. We needed, to move to something with an open standard. They tend to be session-oriented. So if you look at how Salesforce is designed from an identity perspective and an access perspective, our sessions, you log in and we store a row in a database, and it's kind of quick and ephemeral, and it's short. Like your users may only have a session for a couple of hours. That's not quite right for an IoT system. I don't want to log my thermostat in all the time. I want that thermostat to be connected for a long time, as long as my relationship with that customer, really. It also tends to be identity-centric in the way that it issues permissions. So the permissions that you grant in Salesforce through a profile or permission set actually get granted to the user. And we really need to be focused on for IoT, on granting permissions to just what the device needs to act on behalf of the user. You don't want your full system administrator privileges sitting on your thermostat. You just want enough to get that case created. So we want to get to contextual or device-specific permissions. And it's user scale. So if we look at what we need to do and move forward, we needed to introduce something that was open standard. How do we have tokens that can be interpreted by third-party platforms? We need something that's long-term and gives us the ability to act on behalf of this user. Like, how do we not have something that expires in 2 hours? We need to be contextually constrained based upon what this application is or what this device is. Let's not give it the full capabilities of the user. And we really needed something that would scale to these billions and billions of events, allow us to not hammer the CRM database so your sales reps could still get the performance they need for the intensive UI operations and offload all of the IT operations to a bespoke system that's designed to deal with that kind of scale. So what did we do? We worked on 2 interesting standards here. The first one is something called JWT, believe it or not, that's how you pronounce this, JWT. This stands for JSON Web Tokens. The easy way to think about this is, well, I'll cover it in a second. The other is OAuth Token Exchange. Okay, I'm going to actually go into them as I almost tried to dive into. I'm getting rid of this clicker. Okay, so JSON Web Tokens are an open standard for representing claims of security between 2 parties. That sounds kind of ridiculous. Basically, it's signed JSON. Okay, so JSON, nice way to express attributes for users. It's very simple. It has a lot of nice properties in terms of simplicity and interoperability between these systems. But picture you can build up attributes and describe attributes, objects, etc. What was missing from JSON? Well, a lot of stuff, but one of the key things for representing security claims or security tokens was the ability to apply encryption and digital signatures to them. So JSON Web Token, JSON Web Signature, JSON encryption are a that were done in the IETF and standardized somewhat recently, but have become extremely popular for representing these types of claims. And why is this important? It's a simple format that anybody can interpret. So you can go download open source code, and if I were to send you one of these, there's a well-described way that the 2 parties can agree upon for exchanging information. Okay? Standards. Standards make the world simpler. This is what it looks like. Okay? Awesome. It kind of looks like an American flag from here, to tell you the truth. I should have done red, white, and blue, but this probably doesn't look like anything too interesting, but it really breaks down into 3 parts. Okay? There is a header, okay? A body, or a payload, and a signature in this case. Blue's the header, white's the body or payload, green is the signature. Okay, what this actually is base64 URL encoded JSON, base64 URL encoded JSON, and in our case, base64 URL encoded RSA signature of this section of this message. Okay? If you actually decode it, this isn't encrypted, you can just decode this. This is what the header looks like. So it says, hey, I've got a key. I'm a connected coffee maker in this case. Okay? And I probably should have done thermostat, but I'm a JWT, and I've been signed with RSA SHA-256. Okay? It's an algorithm. It's important you kind of know which of these you're using. You should never attempt to write one of these. You should download a well-known open source software that does all of this for you. We actually have built into Winter 17 JWT and JSON signature APIs right into the platforms. If you want to go talk to other services using this format, there are now Apex APIs in Winter to do this. Okay. We also have the payload. Okay. Now, our payload's a little more complex, but these are the security claims that we might be exchanging here. So in this case, we have an audience who we want to go talk to. In this case, it's going to go talk to a Heroku app, for example. And we have a not before NBF, and it expires. Those give us timestamps. How long is this message good for? You know, maybe 5 minutes here. We have an issuer. In this case, the issuer is our org. We have an ID for this, so it can be tracked. And here, look at this. We have an asset ID and a device ID. This token is not only carrying context around the security, who issued it, how long it's good for, but also what asset it's linked to in the Salesforce database and what device ID it represents, i.e. very important context for you if you're ingesting data and something goes wrong. Oh, well, I'm going to go file a case against that asset. Okay, pretty critical. So the other part of the equation here, once we get to standardized tokens, is a way to exchange those standardized tokens. So OAuth token exchange is a protocol used to request and obtain security tokens, blah, 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 blah. The easy way to describe it is it's a way to swap one token for another. This is what's known as a security token service, okay? It's a way to take one format and exchange it for another format. In this case, what we're going to be doing is building up a packet of information about our asset and exchanging it for one of these asset tokens. Okay? We're going to be exchanging our token A for token B, and I'm going to show you how that works. But it's really quite simple. There's two things that we have here in the token exchange. We have a subject token, who's the user, and we have an actor token, who's going to act on behalf of the user. You could map this logically to the person who owns the device, right? The customer behind the device is the subject token. The device is who's going to act on that user's behalf. This is the thermostat that I want to act on my behalf. Okay? And it's really simple to do because we've tried to make it nice and easy, so it's just OAuth. Once again, kind of looks like a bunch of gobbledygook, but this is a simple HTTP post. This is just HTTP like what your web browser does, and I'm posting it like a form you might fill out on the internet, and I simply say, hey, I'm doing token exchange. I have a Salesforce access token. Remember, our app logged in to begin with to identify itself. Here's my access token. And I have an actor token. Here's who I want to have act on my behalf. This, if you decode it, is this is a JOT, which describes the device that I'm registering. Okay? Super simple to do. Okay? And the result is I will get back an access token. So with that was kind of a lot of weird stuff on slides. I figured it would be easier to show you at this point. So let's walk through and kind of take a look at how all of this works. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is head over to setup, because there are some setup steps here. So I'm demoing in Lightning. All of this also works in Salesforce Classic. I'm going to head over to our app manager, okay, and look at our connected app. So our connected app, where's my connected app? Here it is. So I edit this. If you're not familiar with connected apps are a way to describe applications that don't run on our platform to our platform such that they can be managed by our platform. Okay? I said platform a lot of times there. Easiest way to describe this, it's like an API client, a single sign-on app, a mobile app. These are things that don't run directly on the Salesforce platform like Visualforce or Lightning, but they're integrated to the Salesforce platform. And by describing them to us, we know how to display them to admins, we know how to apply access control to them, we know how to apply audit rules, and we can set up rules for how we'd like them to behave. Okay? So if we look at the rules about how we'd like them to behave, I have my app, and I've enabled asset tokens. This is this pilot we've been talking about. And I've set up a series of rules. Let's even see if I can blow this up a little. So you'll see that I'm going to issue tokens that are good for 24 months. I've picked a certificate I want to use for signing these, my Connected Coffee Maker certificate. I've given it an audience who I want to issue it to. And I can also include additional context for it. I can include attributes. So if you have more attributes from the platform that you'd like to issue, you can declare those via formula, or you can write an Apex class to gather information about this device and put it into that token that we're going to issue. You can also issue custom permissions, so you can model custom permissions on the platform. We'll evaluate those, package them up, and put them in this token. Now, I do want to warn you here that these tokens that you're going to issue, in our case, is going to be good for 24 months. So what you want to focus on are putting things into these tokens that are actually going to be good for 24 months. If you have data that's highly volatile or highly changing, you're going to, for instance, put the asset ID in there, but not all of the information about your customer, because that customer information may change over time. The asset will let you get back to find the latest and greatest record there. So you do have to realize these tokens can't be changed once you issue them, and you'll want to be careful about what you put in there because it can't be changed. So we've set up our connected app in order to be able to issue asset tokens. We also have our certificate here and deployed. So we have a connected coffee maker. This one was self-signed on the Salesforce platform. But if you're not familiar with certificates, these use what are known as a private and public key. So you have a private key. We have to keep that secret, and Salesforce will protect that for you. And only the person or system or machine with that private key can actually generate a signature that can be validated by the public key. Okay, and the public key gets wrapped up in this signature, and you can hand them out like confetti. Anybody can have your public key. There's absolutely no danger in it. You can post it on the internet. In fact, we do post it on the internet. So if you look, I can go to /ID/keys for this particular org, and you'll see a bunch of RSA keys here, including our connected coffee maker key. Okay? Why is this important? Not because people like to look at RSA public keys wrapped in JSON in a presentation like this. This is important because the platform that's going to evaluate this may need to reach out and grab that public key. It's going to be set up to trust our issuer, but let's say you're talking to a massive cluster of servers running on Amazon, okay? And one of these tokens shows up, okay? And it doesn't have the public key, but it knows it trusts the issuer. It can reach out back to Salesforce this one time and grab that public key, and then evaluate all the other messages without ever talking to Salesforce again. So it can just ingest data really, really fast. There's a way for us to transport the key over to that system, so as each of those servers come online, you don't have to figure out how to distribute and share the public key amongst it. It can just dynamically pull it over the internet. So we've set up our connected app, and we've set up our public key. We've got rules for how it's going to issue asset tokens, and we get our key to the platform. The next thing we're going to do is walk you through kind of a nerdy demo, but this is one to allow you to see all of the interactions of what's going to go on when we issue this. So I'm going to first set up my OAuth client. So I am going to wait while Heroku spins up my app again, because it's been long enough that, there we go. All I'm doing really here is turning this app into my application. So now I'm set to go. Okay? I'm going to log in to my community. And one of the things that I want to do is make sure I'm not logged into my community, just so you can see the full process. So here I am, Daisy Jensen. I'm actually going to log out. Okay? And I'll click this login button. Now, this obviously isn't the experience you're going to have for your customers. They may have come to your community. They may be registering your product. They're doing something like this, but they've shown up at your community. Okay? And you're asking them to log in. So in this case, Daisy's just going to log in with Facebook. Okay? You can use all the power of our platform to pull identity off other systems. You can have them log in locally, self-register, et cetera. We've pulled this information across, and we've given that application a code that it can exchange for a session about you. And now you'll notice that I'm logged in as daisypop89@gmail.com. Okay? So DaisyPop is now logged in and ready to register her device. Now she's going to gather some information about this device. Obviously, this probably isn't what you'd expose to your end user either. You may ask them to type in your serial number, but most likely you are going to, we'll just call this Daisy's token. Okay? We've got a device ID, and we'll call this Daisy's asset. And here's her account and contact and the serial number of this device. We can even associate a private key and a public key with this device. So we can capture that key in the back end for Salesforce. And we're going to build up our actor token. Now, once again, this is just signed JSON, or it can be even unsigned at this point. But this is this blob of stuff you're going to register about this user. Once again, it's got a header and a payload. We have our device key, and it uses RSA SHA-256. And then we're gathering, here's its device ID. Here's what I want you to call it. Here's the asset. Oh, I want to associate with this account, this contact. Here's Daisy's name. Here's her serial number. Here's the key for the device if you want to bind that in. Okay? And it's set to go. So all we really need to do is exchange it. So here's that OAuth token exchange. I'm going to post to the token endpoint my subject token, here's the Salesforce session, and my actor token, here's the information about who I want to act on my behalf. Okay? And as I do that, I request an access token, and boom. On the back end, what we did is we looked in the Salesforce database, tried to find an existing asset with that serial number. We didn't find an asset with that serial number, so we created an asset on the fly. We optionally fired any process that was attached to that, and we issued this new token. Okay? And this is our asset token that we can now hand to our connected thermostat and let it go do its work. You'll notice a few things about it, though. Let me blow it up a little bit for you. We have said, I'm issued with key connected coffee makers. Remember, that was the rule we set up in the connected app and said, here's what you're going to issue these tokens with. So that's how you're going to know how to validate its signature. And then, here's the audience we configured. Remember, we're going to target it at our asset tokens app. Here's the issuer. It's from our org. This isn't Salesforce issuing it. This is you issuing it. This is your org. Here's its public key. We've bound that into the token, so you could do full proof of possession. You could prove you held the private key that was associated with this device when it was registered. And here's the most important part. Here's not only the device ID, but the asset that we created on the fly that will let you find that contact back in Salesforce. Okay. So what can you do with it? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We can use it. There's two primary ways you can use it. The first might be as a bearer token. So we can simply send it as a header. And if we look at this, we just send, hey, here's my token, and here's some data to go with it. Okay? And that's pretty straightforward, because all you have to do is do something like use curl. So I could send this up to an app running on Heroku, let's say. So I paste this in. And I have an invalid asset token. So, oh, yeah. I misconfigured my audience slightly. But you get the idea. It was able to unpack all of these claims, and in this case, I proved that it's a live demo because it actually rejected my access token in this case. Notice all of the things that we looked at inside of that were easily unpacked by this app running on Heroku. And the app running on Heroku was able to do that because it's done with an open standard. The other way you can do this is exchange it. So here we can post it to a backend, and we, just like we exchanged an our actor token for one of these long-term grants, you could use one of these long-term grants to exchange it for your own session. So if you can't directly ingest this, or you need to get a session or API token for your own services, you could use these and exchange them. Okay. Let's see what this looks like, though, when we combine it with IoT Cloud. So in IoT Cloud, if we flip over here, if you're not familiar with IoT Cloud, this is what it looks like. We've set up an input stream, so we're going to collect data from our connected thermostat, and we're going to pipe that into an orchestration. So let's go take a look at our orchestration. Here, we have a basic state machine is the best way to describe it. And if we look at the rules associated with that, we are going to look at the temperature associated with this, and if the temperature spikes over a certain amount, we're going to do a state transition to the handle spike event. And as we do that, we can create an opportunity we can create an opportunity in Salesforce, and we can create a case in Salesforce, right? Those two things are going to happen. So basically, as we're sending this, we'll keep ingesting this data, and you can do other things with the data as it's coming in. But in this case, our state machine's watching for temperature spike. I better create a case and create an opportunity for somebody associated with that contact. Let's see it in action. So I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to pull up the player. Okay. And the player will allow us to actually look at data coming into the platform. So I now have a player. We're going to see data come in and the events coming out of what's going on as a result of orchestrations. And I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to send a temperature spike to the IoT Cloud. So I click this, and we'll flip back here, and boom, look at that. We got our temperature spike, and then the IoT Cloud looked up and determined that it had transitioned into a state that it needed to take action, and it took a whole bunch of actions on us, on our behalf, including creating this case and creating this opportunity in Salesforce. And that is the real payoff here, which is if we go back and look at how this is connected, if we head back to our org, it's not just that the data could get into IoT Cloud, it's that our backend service now has enough context to do the right thing. So if we come in here and find Daisy Jensen, the user who logged into the community to begin with and registered her device, down the road that temperature spike came. And you'll notice now we have a new opportunity that was just created and a new case that was just created and a new asset that was created and tracked for Daisy. So we get that event, we're able to look up this asset, we can punch through and take a look at the asset associated with this. So here's the information that we're tracking about this. We now have the serial number. We know which contact it's associated with it. We know which account it's associated with. And we then were able to create the case associated with the right user, i.e. the case shows up on this particular contact record because when the temperature spike came in, IoT Cloud recognized that. It found the opportunity that you needed to act on to close the loop, was able to look at that asset ID and create that case on behalf of that customer in IoT Cloud. So with that, I wanted to thank you for coming, but also leave a little bit of time for questions. Here's some additional resources you might want to take a look at. We have this guide. Okay, so you can go download this, and this will walk you through kind of exactly what we went through today in terms of how to set up and use asset tokens. It won't cover the IoT Cloud part of things, but it'll cover all of the issuance, how you use these, et cetera. This utility that I showed you, I forgot to post the URL here, but is at assettokens.herokuapp.com. If you're using our pilot, this is something that you can then use yourself to test it. If you keep clicking through to the next page, it'll even show you some sample code on how easy it is to evaluate one of these things. So just using some open source, this is how simple and quick and easy it is to evaluate one of these tokens in your own services. So with that, you can also go out, and if you're kind of feeling nerdy, you can read some internet RFCs on how JWT and JWS work, OAuth token exchange, contribute to the community if you want. And with that, I wanted to open it up for questions if people have any. Hopefully that wasn't a bunch of gobbledygook. So, questions? Okay, well, I wanted to thank you for coming. I'll be here for questions afterwards. I'll be here with my card if you'd like to explore a little this or kick the tires on the pilot. Or if you want, go check out using asset tokens. And this is a great resource to kind of go back over this one more time, read it, and hopefully walk away with either some interest in using it on our platform or taking some of these same patterns because they're open standards and using them in your own infrastructure. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of Dreamforce.